Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Solving Common Co-Packing Problems with Digitalization. My name is Josephine Coombe, and I'm the Managing Director in the UK for Nulogy. Nulogy is a software solution provider focused on helping co-packers optimize their operations. And today I'm joined by a fantastic panel. We have Michael Briggs, who's the Managing Director of Blackburn-based Marsden Packaging. We have Gavin Withers, who's director with the Keswick Enterprises Group, and two of their subsidiaries, APS and SGL, are co-packers who also work with Nulogy's software platform. And Scott Johnson, my colleague, director of customer solutions for Nulogy out of our UK office based in Bristol. Really looking forward to today's conversation hosted by Packaging Innovations. And I'm going to go around the panel room today and have everybody just give a little bit more of an introduction. But before we do that, a couple of housekeeping notes for today's session. There will be a conversation with our panelists to start, but make sure you stay till the end, because at that point, Scott is going to give us a high-level demonstration of Nulogy's software package that is purpose-built for co-packing operations, so you won't want to miss that portion of today's session. If you have questions, we're happy to take those questions through the course of today's presentation. You can just put those into the chat and I will read them out and direct them to the appropriate speaker. So with that, I'll pass the floor over to Michael Briggs to give a little introduction. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. As Joe said, my name is Michael Briggs, and I'm Managing Director of Marsden Packaging Limited, who've been in business for over 40 years, providing contract packing services to the food industry. And we've latterly expanded into pharmaceuticals and vitamins. In 2015, we took the decision to go with Nulogy, and we've been using their software comprehensively ever since, and we find it a great asset to our business. Thank you, Joe. Great,
thanks, Michael. And over to you, Gavin.
Hello, everyone. Gavin Withers, as Joe said, I'm a director at Keswick Enterprises, which is a privately owned business. I'm responsible for all of our co-pack activities, amongst other things, notably at SGL and APS. My background is in FMCG and the logistics sector. I've worked for Unilever and Tibbett and Britton Group PLC in the past. I've now been 15 years with the Keswick Enterprises Group, and the group focuses on fulfillment and supply chain services. We have been using Nulogy at SGL since 2016. And APS that we acquired last year, we installed Nulogy there very shortly after acquiring that business. And that's me.
Great, thanks, Gavin. And last but not least, over to you, Scott.
Thank you, Josephine. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Johnson, based out of the UK office for Nulogy here, Director of Customer Solutions. And I have a background in technology and supply chain, where I've spent the last 10 years at Nulogy helping co-packers, 3PLs, manufacturers across Europe, North America, South America, help them digitize their operations. So it's a pleasure to take part in today's webinar.
Thanks very much, Scott. And so welcome to our panelists and welcome to our audience today. So just to kick off, the theme of today's webinar is this concept of solving common problems with digitalization. But what are these common problems? Can we talk a little bit about the kind of categories of issues that a co-packer typically faces every day? Maybe we'll start with you, Gavin.
Yeah, sure. I mean, certainly one of the things that I think is really important to have sight of is where stock is and in what state it is going through the warehouse and the factory. And that's something that's traditionally harder to do on a real-time basis unless you've got systems in place that can handle that for you. Another key area I would say is traceability, where customer expectations are only increasing in that area. And again, you really need to be able to demonstrate to customers these days that you've got decent control over that sort of issue.
Great, thank you for that. And Michael, is this resonating with you? Do you sort of encounter the same kinds of issues at Marsden?
Absolutely. And if I can pick up first on traceability, because we have some pharmaceutical customers, their reliance on traceability information is even higher than food traceability. And it was a concern of ours that Nulogy wouldn't be able to cope with that when we first engaged with you, but the system absolutely does cope with it and is fantastic. And whenever we get independent auditors, they're very impressed with the level of detail that we can provide, and also, drilling down more so that Nulogy will prevent the wrong batch being brought to a production line if it's not the right batch number. If you're still on manual systems, of course, you don't have that. But it's very good at making sure that the right stuff gets to production line at the right time. And of course, there are no errors then. And we'll all have had situations in the past when a line starts and perhaps you've not got the right component to the line. So yeah, traceability is fantastic. As Gavin said, making sure that you know exactly what your stock situation is paramount. And everybody will have had a situation where they think they can run a production line all day, and lo and behold, you're short of a component because your systems aren't good enough at recording what you've got. Nulogy is fantastic at telling you when you want to start a project, whether you can complete it, and if not, how many you can run. So yeah, great asset.
Great, good to hear. So I just want to go back to sort of origins. You're both arguably quite innovative co-packers in that I would say you're early adopters of technology relative to the market. We certainly meet a lot of co-packers who are still running their business on manual processes, spreadsheets, and so forth. So I'm interested in what was it that triggered your decision to invest in a technology solution to address some of these problems? Was there a tipping point that you reached in the evolution of your business, or what got you to that point? Gavin, maybe start with you.
Sure. Yeah. There was no one particular feature. I have to say, when we took the decision, there were a few factors that we considered. Firstly, I think is really about wanting to improve processes. So as we all become more and more engaged in good processes in our businesses, and typically as co-packers, we are audited very regularly by all of our customers. It's really important to be able to demonstrate what you're doing in terms of good process. So the sorts of things I'm thinking about here are control. So it's, again, we're coming back to an issue we've already mentioned, but it's controlling stock through the factory. It's being able to be 100% confident that if a customer, for example, asks you to put a component on hold, that you're picking exactly the right product, exactly the right batch code and so on, so that it is put on hold and you're confident you know where it is. Another factor would be customers really focusing again on quality and what records you have on the system, and the whole business of recall and so on. I'm pleased to say it's not something we have to do, but you have to be able to prove that you can do it. And one of the things with the Nulogy system that you can do is you can run exercises, and that's what our customers tend to do. They say, look, let's pretend such and such a product has an issue, run a full recall on that product. And we knew beforehand that with manual systems we could do that, but it might take hours, and it would certainly take a lot of man hours in the business. So that was the sort of thing we were looking to be able to do quickly in an automated way. And then finally, I would just touch on the issue of future-proofing. And that's really about, as we sat down and thought about what do we think our customers will need in the future, it didn't look much like manual systems or databases or whatever. So these are the kind of things that brought us to looking for a decent system to help us.
Interesting. And you know, I found your comments about the recall readiness particularly interesting, because in a way brands when they outsource work to a co-packer, you are essentially a custodian of their reputation, their brand, and so that preparedness is clearly really important. Michael, are these some of the same triggers, or were there different things that kind of led you down the technology path?
Well, absolutely, they are the same triggers. When I bought the business, it was running okay, and it had various systems. Some were manual, some were spreadsheet driven. They didn't talk to each other. There was a lot of inefficiency in the office-based side of the business because of that. But then that spread its problems out into the warehouse and onto the factory floor. So it was apparent that to make the place more efficient and allow it to grow, we had to find a solution.
Michael, I'm just going to interrupt you for one moment, because I'm noticing in the chat that some of our audience members are finding it a little hard to hear you. So perhaps if you maybe lean a little closer to your computer.
Yeah. How's
okay.
that?
That's hopefully better.
That's better. Okay. Yeah. So do you want me to recap on that, or?
Yes, perhaps just the
Sorry,
key
I was
points
saying
there.
that when I bought the business, it was immediately apparent that the systems that were in place, which were ad hoc, manual and spreadsheet systems that didn't talk to each other, were causing a lot of inefficiency in the office-based operations, but they also manifest themselves out in the warehouse and the factory. So a solution needed to be found, and going into the market took some time to research, but it became apparent that Nulogy was a one-stop shop that could provide WMS systems, production systems, and quality all under one roof, all talking to each other, and yeah, it was a great fit and works very, very well. So yeah, finding Nulogy was a breath of fresh air. It's allowed us to be more efficient. It's allowed us to grow, and it allows us to provide information to our customers whenever they want it, or they can even have a live feed in to the system and look at their own stock records, which is great, and customers love it, whether it be the quality or the processing or the data supply. So yeah, the triggers are very much the same as Gavin's, and you know, we're delighted we found a great solution.
Nice to hear. So this issue of sort of your customer service levels, your responsiveness, obviously the last year and a half has been particularly volatile for the industry, and what was already a highly dynamic, volatile environment has become even more so. To what extent do you feel that the technology has enabled you to be more responsive, more agile in this kind of difficult environment?
Okay. Well, from a production planning point of view, it's great because you can see very quickly if you've got to chop and change lines because components don't arrive, or a customer asks you to stop something and start something else. You can very quickly find out your stock availability, where it all is, get it to a production line, and have it ready to roll as something else finishes. So yeah, it's allowed us to be far more nimble than we would have been beforehand. And of course, as we all know, downtime is a killer, and nobody likes to see people stood around with nothing to do, waiting for the warehouse to find stock. So yeah, it actually removes all of those issues and makes you far more efficient.
Excellent. Gavin, have you felt that this has sort of enabled you to step up your service levels, and what are you hearing from your customers on that front?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we have seen that volatility, you know, over the COVID year and so on. We've been seeing all sorts of unanticipated changes. I think I'd say as a sort of co-packer at heart that, the key for us is to be able to change quickly anyway. And I would kind of put it the other way around, that we're ready to change as a management team and a team throughout the business. So the question is your IT slowing you down at all? And I think the answer to that is no. And then, like Michael said, there are certain features that positively help you to move quickly. So if, for example, you have a customer that's saying, I want to switch production from one product to another, and they need to understand how much of a common component is available, that's where the system really helps you. So I think it's more, for me, it's that the system, A, doesn't slow you down, and B, when you need it to do stuff quickly for you, it does.
Interesting, because we encounter a lot of co-packing environments where critical information is experience based. It's locked often in the memory of the warehouse manager, but there's quite rightly a lot of trust in those experienced people. So to what extent does real-time information, or this more sort of democratic information access, free you from that dependency and potentially kind of free up the ability to leverage that talent in different ways? Is this a good thing to have better, faster information access?
Who's that one for, Joe?
Who do you want, Joe?
Michael, take a go at that one.
Okay. It is a great benefit. I mean, if you've got a production line that's been running and then it stops because you're short of a component that's supposed to be in the warehouse, and the warehouse manager is off sick or on holiday and nobody can find this pallet, it's a nightmare, and people can start blaming each other, and get departments falling out with each other, and Pack Manager or Nulogy just removes that because it's there for all to see on the system. That pallet should be in rack number one. It is there. Out it comes in on the production line, and there's no delay. And so you remove the tensions that there would perhaps have been in the past between departments, which is something that I hadn't considered Pack Manager would deliver, but it's just one of the added bonuses that you get from a great system.
Yeah, I would add that one of the things that you have when you use the system is you have to be disciplined. So you can't just offload a truck of stock coming in and just sit it on the floor and do nothing with it, because you have to be booking that stock in. So let's say, for example, and it doesn't happen very often, but you can have poorly labeled components coming into your factory. The system kind of forces you to deal with that as it arrives, rather than somebody thinking, well, I'll deal with that tomorrow and I'm just going to put it away in the corner of the warehouse, and then it gets forgotten about. So it's this whole business of discipline, even if it might occasionally seem inconvenient, is a big benefit then further down the track.
Scott, you've done something like 50 implementations of co-packing software around the world, and so you've seen some of these environments where these processes have to evolve. Is that a difficult change management burden, or what have you encountered in those situations?
Well, I think from co-packers, just the philosophy of needing to be agile and needing to be able to change and to adapt. I think it's in the nature of being a co-packer, and through that worked with many different co-packers around the world, different maturity levels that had to go through that change management. And to adopt a solution such as Nulogy, I think one of the key things was making it easy and intuitive for all the people to use. So for all of these types of environments, providing them something that's ease of use and something that they could use and scale up as you add more people to the operations.
Did you find that, Michael, in your operations? Were your shop floor staff able to make that transition to the software relatively easily, or was it a difficult transition?
No, it was a very smooth transition, and announcing the decision to all of the colleagues who were going to use it, I was sort of a little nervous that it might get a bit of pushback, but everybody thought it sounded like a great idea. And then when we saw the demos and things like that, they bought into it even more. And then the training came along, and all very excited by it, including a lady who was one of our QCs who was close to retirement, and she didn't have a mobile phone, and she didn't know how to use a computer, and she was worried she was going to lose a job. And so we sat her down and said, look, we're changing your role. If it doesn't work, we'll find a worker. And I said, no, I want to learn how to do it. I want to conquer it. And bless her, she did, which was, full marks to her. Everybody else just dived straight into it because they were computer savvy, and yeah, it was a very smooth transition. Obviously, some people got immediate benefits. Other people had perhaps a slightly increased workload to start with, but everybody saw the benefits to the company as a whole. So yeah, it was a good transition.
Good to hear. And Gavin, I know at APS, which was implemented during the height of lockdown and pandemic disruption, and so the whole implementation was managed remotely. Obviously, our teams had to really collaborate well. How do you feel that sort of came out in the end?
Well, we were a bit alarmed at being a guinea pig, but it was the first thing I'd say. But no, given what was going on at the time, and the fact that we were all having to deal with distancing and how we could stay even open and functioning, to put a system implementation on top of that, and on top of that, not to be able to have any of your team on site. I mean, it went incredibly well, because the proof was that we had the system up and running just in time for our peak season starting in June. And had we not done that, it could have been a real mess. So yeah, I think it was not what any of us wanted to do, but it worked. And I have to say, I would have been far more nervous if we hadn't already done an implementation in quieter times. But I knew that at least as a system and the way you implement it, we would stand a chance, and so it proved.
Good. Michael, I know for you the quality piece of the equation has been really important. Tell us a bit more about how the software is being leveraged for quality checks.
Right. Well, we had a paper-based quality system, so populating pre-printed forms with handwritten data every half hour, which sort of had been done for years and years and years. And the Nulogy quality system allows you to sort of create forms that initially we mirrored what we did on paper on an iPad. So your QC goes to production line and tells the iPad which line they're going to be checking, and it comes up with the form, and they go through the form. Some items are ticks or crosses, some need to be populated with information, and you progress your way down, and there's a facility to take photographs and attach those to each report, and then as the document's completed, it gets digitally signed off by that QC and reviewed later by a manager, and saved and stored in the cloud, and is available to send to customers on a daily basis or an hourly basis, whatever they would like. And when customers come round, or even auditors come round and see what we're doing on iPads, it really impresses people. And a lot of large manufacturers are saying, crikey, why can't we do that? And these are people that you sort of think, wow, they've got budgets that are huge, and they're still on paper-based systems. So yeah, I mean, it's great. And to be able to send people your QC checks without having to photocopy things and scan them or whatever, is wonderful. And the attachment of photographs proving that you have done your check and that your product that you've seen at the half hour at the end of the line is correct, just helps give customers that confidence that we're doing the right job.
Excellent. Is it something you've used to any great extent, the quality piece of the solution, Gavin?
Absolutely, and I would echo everything Michael says, but I think I'd expand out from there. So it's this whole notion of everything being live, and I think for people who don't have this system or similar, this is the thing that really strikes you once you have the system in place. Is you are seeing live, if you like almost like a fluid, the product going through your factory. And so that the live recording of the movement of stock, the conversion of stock, then the quality records, as Michael has been saying, all of that is going on all of the time. And so the system is permanently up to date. Like Michael, we've had some very favorable comments from customers coming and and I'm talking about large FMCG multinational customers coming in, and then being very impressed at seeing how easy it is for us to do. We've already talked about recall, but then product hold, for example, is live. It's very easy to see. You can get stock location straight away. Another element is waste recording, which is something which is done live on the system. So you don't have to wait for a month-end reconciliation to see how much of a component you're using against what the standard is for that component. You get that straight away. And if you think about how that can affect the way you plan, if you know exactly how a line is running, for example, you might have a line that's running slightly ahead, you can see on the system. You don't have to wait for somebody to come up from the factory into the office and say 6 hours in, actually, we finished the shift. What do you want us to do now? You can already see as it's going by. So I think this whole notion of having stuff live is really helpful for us, but then customers are quite surprised at the extent that the system allows.
Very interesting. Thank you for that insight. One of the things that we've observed at Nulogy is skew variability seems to be a constant issue for co-packers. And so a bill of materials might have to have multiple different versions as they make, sort of variations to a product. In Nulogy, there is a bill of material versioning capability. Is that something that's been of use to you to manage some of that variability? Michael, maybe address that one?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we do get asked to swap components in and out, and so the software allows you to create versions. So you might be running on version 2 and you need to create version 3 pretty quickly because there's a substitute component coming, which is very straightforward to do. So you can then run for however long on version 3, and then the next time you run, or the following day, you might be asked to switch back to version 2, and it's toggling between 2 versions, which is great. Yeah, very straightforward, but a wonderful tool.
Interesting.
Yeah, we have a sorry.
No, go ahead, Gavin.
Yeah, I was just going to say we have one product that we do, which has 8 different components, and each component has a different count or weight to them, and that can literally be changed overnight by the customer for a variety of reasons. So this version thing is really important. So we actually have to change the setup of the equipment that we're using, but that has to immediately match what is on the system, because we're then doing our quality checks against that. So the fact that all of these things get aligned means we're then very confident about something that would have caused us a lot more concern in the past in terms of a change going through the factory.
Interesting. Scott, in your sort of travels with co-packers, is that a capability that's been particularly important?
Yeah, I would say more and more that you're seeing just the volatility, skew, proliferation, and needing to adapt to that with the changes of the bill of material. And it not only, it impacts multiple things, that it impacts your production schedule, it impacts your material requirements of what needs to be ordered and to be ready. So be able to respond quickly to your customer has been incredibly important for that.
Great. So we're getting close to the point where we're going to transition over to the demonstration. But before we do that, Gavin, for our audience today, I'm sure there's co-packers out there who are thinking about technology, not sure if it's the right time for them. What advice do you have for your peers around what questions to be asking themselves and what issues to sort of be considering before making this type of an investment decision?
Well, I'll start with an obvious one, which is understand what your customers want. And I think that's broader than just what do they want now. It's what will they want in the future. And not all of your customers are going to be able to articulate that, but it's at least worth having a go, because it's always a great way to focus the mind. And then secondly, whatever solution you've got in place at the moment, I would say have a really good look at that and try and work out what you like about it and what you don't like. And as much thinking as you can do about that, I think the better. A third thing, and I'm not a technical person, but do have a think about IT infrastructure, because there are things to consider, like whether you have a system running over the cloud in the way that Nulogy does, which can be a great solution for a co-packer who doesn't want to have a bunch of servers sat in a room somewhere. So I think about the infrastructure and think about how that may affect your decision. And then finally, I would say think about the whole cost piece, because new systems cost money. They require capital investment. But the danger is you rule out moving because you say, oh, that's going to be too expensive. I think the mistake people might make is that they don't try and consider what their current way of working costs them. And it might be quite low in terms of technology cost, but when you add up all of the hours spent doing manual reports and so on, you might find it costs a whole lot more than you think. So I think that's a really good thing to take a look at.
Mm-hmm. Good insights there. Michael, advice for our audience?
Well, absolutely what Gavin said, and by virtue of the fact you're watching this, you've started a journey which has led you to Nulogy's door at the moment, but not necessarily to conclude there. But you're obviously thinking about things, and Gavin said about costs being not insignificant, but it's very difficult to quantify the benefits that you get and put pounds, shillings, and pence against those figures to get the system in. And there are all sorts of benefits that fall out of it that sort of we hadn't considered, and it just makes you a better place, a more efficient place, and more able to deal with your customers and their demands. And hopefully it allows us to stand apart from our competitors.
Do you see the technology as enabling you to scale as you take on larger or more customers? Is it part of your growth journey?
Definitely, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if we hadn't had Nulogy and we'd tried to get to where we are today with our old systems, I think we would have let some people down in quite a big way. I think we would have creaked too much, would have probably thrown more people at office-based systems trying to find a solution, but it wouldn't have been the right track to go down. So yeah, definitely. IT's out there to help us all, and you've got to embrace it. You've got to move forward with it and find a partner that isn't going to just sell you a system for today. You want a partner that's going to keep on helping you grow, and they're going to keep on developing their software as things change. And Nulogy are great at doing that.
Great. So we're kind of at that point. Just want to remind our audience, please do feel free to pose any questions or comments. Love to get your feedback in the chat. But I'm going to hand the floor over to Scott, and he's going to give us a high-level demonstration of the solution and how it addresses some of the common problems we've been discussing. So over to you, Scott.
Thanks, Josephine. So in this presentation, I'm going to be touching on some of the sample problems that we've discussed with Gavin and Michael and how it could be solved through digitalization. So there's a few themes that I'm going to touch on throughout this presentation, and they've been repeated a few times that we've heard already. One of them is around traceability. So how are you going to ensure you're able to meet your customers' traceability requirements? The other being around responsiveness. So how to keep that agility and flexibility expected from your customers. And then finally, quality, how to keep up with the quality standards set by you and your customers. Now, where I'm going to start with is around the theme of traceability. So some of the common challenges we've discussed is one around the lack of inventory controls to ensure you have the correct lot code, batch code, and skew are brought to the line and consumed. Sometimes today you might be following a manual process to ensure everything is done correctly. The second one is the manual tracking of lot code consumption throughout the production process to track the consumption of lots, expiry dates, and be able to generate the finished good lot code. And then finally, around the manual and time-consuming process in the event of a recall or a customer audit. So sometimes you're needing to look at multiple system spreadsheets to understand where a pallet was received, stored, picked, produced, damaged, consumed, and shipped. So in the following slides, I'll provide a few examples of how Nulogy solution is used by co-packing customers today to address these challenges. So the first one is around addressing the challenge of the lack of inventory controls. So Nulogy solution digitizes the picking process. So when you're picking items to your production lines, this ensures that you're bringing the correct item and lot code to the line. So instead of manual paper-based processes, you're able to use prioritized pick lists that are accessed by a forklift operator on tablet devices. And there's systematic checks to make sure that the correct items and lot codes are brought to the line and consumed. So you're not left guessing where a forklift operator is looking for a particular pallet. They're directed in the location of where it is and bringing the correct item to production. There's also additional controls in place, such as zoning rules if you have hazard materials that can only be in certain sections of the warehouse. So various controls to ensure that inventory is accurate at all times. The second one is around addressing the challenge around the manual tracking of consumption. So Nulogy solution tracks real-time WIP consumption to maintain accurate inventory levels and traceability. So there's inventory controls to verify that the correct materials are consumed and that you have enough WIP materials to fulfill production requirements. There's also systematic ways of tracking lot codes and expiry dates for each pallet that's produced. So you get that granular visibility into what lot was used and consumed on each pallet of production. And in addition to that, throughout the production process, you're able to track damages, and there's end of shift line reconciliation, which highlights discrepancies based on set tolerances that you have by item, so that you can maintain your inventory levels within the accuracy rates that you expect. The third example with the Nulogy solution addresses the time-consuming process for recall. So Nulogy solution helps you maintain that lot traceability and improve your recall readiness. So there's on the production side, you're able to automatically generate lot codes and expiry dates based on predefined rules. You can access recall data via easy-to-use reports so that you can understand quickly where items were received, produced, consumed, stored. And in the event of a recall or customer audit, this allows you to quickly and confidently respond to your customers and providing that granular visibility to the specific pallets that might be impacted. Next, we're going to be looking at some of the challenges we see as it relates to responsiveness. So some of the ones that we've discussed earlier is around that lack of real-time inventory visibility, which makes it difficult to maintain updates and share this with your customers. The second is around the cumbersome process to manage updates to your production schedule. So when you have last minute changes to demand, whether it's the due date, change of bill of materials, or the quantity, being able to respond quickly. The third is around the time-consuming process to quickly summarize material requirements based on the updated demand from your customer. So in the following slides, I will go into a few examples on how Nulogy solution is used by co-packing customers to address these challenges. The first addresses the challenge around the lack of real-time inventory visibility. So Nulogy solution provides that end-to-end inventory management for your co-packing operations. There's customized inventory statuses that if you have inventory that is left on hold, you're able to do that and show available inventory so that you have the necessary controls in place. In addition, there's GS1 SCC support for pallet tracking and customized labels to ensure that you're meeting the necessary requirements from your site and your customers. The next example touches on the challenge around the cumbersome process to react to demand changes. So Nulogy's scheduling solution allows you to quickly react to changes in demand. So you can make adjustments to the schedule in real time and use a drag and drop interface that helps your planners do their jobs more effectively. You're able to assess key factors such as due dates, labor requirements, line availability, run rates, and their impact on the production schedule. It allows you to make what-if scenarios without affecting production, and then you can quickly share these results across your site and to your customer. The next example addresses the challenges of around managing material requirements. So Nulogy's materials planning solution allows planners to quickly and easily identify material shortages. This helps you order materials at the right time to avoid any rush deliveries or ordering too much inventory that might end up as waste. So with this, you no longer need to go through multiple systems and spreadsheets to identify what are the material requirements and when they need to be ordered. Now, the next theme I'll be looking at is around some of the common challenges we discussed around quality. So one of the common themes that we see is the time-consuming and paper-based process to manage quality standards, inspections, and reporting. The second is around lack of systematic controls to ensure all inspections are completed accurately, on time, with the necessary approvals. And third is around the lack of reporting on historical quality inspections and the time-consuming process to investigate issues that might have come up. So I'm going to go through a few examples on how Nulogy solution helps address these challenges. The first is around addressing the time-consuming process for quality inspections. So Nulogy solution helps digitalize all quality inspections. We remove the paper and manual-based processes to manage inspections, and instead, quality inspections are completed on tablet device on the shop floor by the quality team. And it's seamlessly integrated into the production process so that you're improving data integrity and you don't have to re-enter a lot of the data back in. In addition, you can capture photos or other critical data, which could be stored and shared with your customer. The next example addresses the challenges around the lack of quality controls. So throughout Nulogy solution, there's configurable user groups, so it allows you to determine who has access to what, and also audit trails to help you effectively control all quality processes. So this ensures that you have full traceability over the creation, modification, and deletion of certain quality records and other high-risk activities. And the final challenge that we looked at is around the difficulty to investigate the root cause of issues. So Nulogy provides full visibility into the ongoing and historical quality inspections to help investigate the root cause of issues. So share critical information with you and your customer. Your team has access to quality dashboards and reports so that you can review daily progress, ongoing inspections, and historical data to share the quality data and any photos with your site and your customers. Now, by addressing each of these challenges with digitalization, you're able to see the direct impact to your operations. So this includes improvements in customer service, so enhanced customer service that You can improve your response time to customer inquiries and improve service levels. There's also additional improved cost controls where you have improved inventory accuracy with the ability to drive continuous improvement initiatives. And there's additional realizable gains, so reduction in labor cost and potentially reduction in material write-offs. So thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that have come up.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Scott, for that presentation. So we are opening the floor to any questions from the audience. Our panelists are happy to take questions. Scott's happy to take questions as well on anything around the demo and so forth. So please don't be shy. Do put your questions into the chat. In the meantime, you know, one thing I've sort of observed, and I think some of your comments in the presentation, Scott, made this clear, is that there's a sort of category of benefits that create very pragmatic, quantifiable, operational efficiency gains. But there's also more strategic opportunities with this technology to help you know, generate more confidence with your customers around your quality protocols and so forth, and ultimately to give them that assurance that you can provide that responsive service, which I might classify as more strategic benefits. Michael alluded earlier to the sort of the growth enabling factor of investing in technology. Gavin, any sort of comments on that balance of both strategic and operational benefits?
Yeah, I'd maybe answer that with an example. We have been working with one of our larger customers on a project which is now pretty much complete to give them direct access into our system, so into Nulogy, so that they can see the product coming onto our site, being converted, going into finished stock and so on, which sits alongside all of the other tasks we go through with that customer. So the reason the customer's doing that is I think to have greater transparency on their total supply chain. So as I think you mentioned before, there's this, I think, idea increasingly with our customers that they see us as kind of part of their business for what we do. And being able to create these sort of links really enables that. So this is about, I think, the way customers are going to be looking in the future. So the customer in question, I think, is an early adopter, if you like, of this. But without having the infrastructure of the system, we wouldn't have been able to offer what they wanted. But because we had the system in place, effectively, the links have just been written between Nulogy and their systems, and it's done in one hit. So not without its complexities, but I think it kind of tells you where are some of the bigger companies going in the future, and can Nulogy cope with that? And in this case, the answer is, you know, clearly yes.
Very, very interesting. And it actually ties into one of the questions that's just come through. Are there any exciting new projects in the pipeline for Nulogy? And I think, you know, that issue of how you bridge between the brand and the co-packing network is definitely an area that we're excited about at Nulogy and putting a lot more focus on. You know, increasingly what we're hearing from FMCG brands is that, you know, the old world where arguably the external co-pack and external manufacturing network might have been a bit of a black box in terms of you outsource it, you wait to get the order back, and you don't worry too much about what's happening on the other side of the fence. That world is over, and increasingly brands really want to be working in a collaborative ecosystem with their co-packing partners. And so an area that is definitely an exciting focus for Nulogy is helping to build that bridge between the brand and the co-packing partners. And it's, you know, it's an area that I know both of you gentlemen have been engaged with us on. I think, in terms of, addressing the question, the other thing I'd like to do is have Scott maybe just highlight some of the key areas of our product roadmap that we're focused on right now in terms of new directions that Nulogy is pursuing. So I'll let you maybe add a few words there, Scott.
Yeah, so a couple of the areas, as Josephine has discussed, around more of capabilities to support the collaborative aspect between the brands and the co-packers. So as an example, around collaborating on your production plan so that you get more visibility into the brand's demand, to be able to collaborate on that production schedule, be able to be notified in the single platform to be able to get that visibility, or tracking some of the key milestones associated with it so that you can determine, has the brand sent the materials on time? Have you received all the necessary approvals? So a lot of the capabilities are more around that collaborative aspect between the FMCG brand and the co-packing partner.
Thank you for that, Scott. And I think, the ultimate vision is one where there's really sort of two outcomes, benefits for the brand and the co-packer. One is that ability to respond faster to market needs, and then also that ability to sort of have shared accountability around orders, better visibility into where they stand and who's responsible for what. So it really enables a more agile response to what is increasingly a very volatile market environment.
If I might add, Josephine.
Yes, Michael.
One of the benefits of having the bridge between the two, in the past, you're only as good as your last job. In the future, if you develop these links, you've a far more stable relationship, and it is perhaps a bigger decision to find a new co-packer than it would have been in the past. So you're becoming tied into your customers, which has to be a positive thing.
Precisely. Exactly. One of the benefits of sort of building that link for the co-packer is that you are most certainly going to assume the status of a more strategic co-packer within their network. And so instead of sort of co-packers being more fungible and replaceable with other players, if you've built that bridge, you're going to be a strategic partner with your brand customer. I think we don't have any more questions, so I'll just give it, sort of one more minute if anybody wants to pop anything in the chat, and if not, we will start sort of some closing remarks. So, any final words, Gavin, for our audience today?
Yeah, I just I mentioned one thing with respect. We've talked a lot about the structural things that the system brings and our objectives, our customer objectives, and so on. So I thought maybe I'll end on an example of a surprise benefit with the system after putting it in, and that's a feature that allows you to effectively go back in time and see what the position was with regard to your stock, your production, and so on, maybe 6 days ago or something. And that is, we found, is a very useful feature, because in the past you could never really go back in time and say, well, why did we run out of a component? Or whereas using that feature on the system, to our surprise, you can go back, analyze what went wrong a lot better, and then work out how not to repeat it in the future. So, I guess the message is, apart from the things that I hope, tried to organize and explain in the discussion, there are a few surprises as well in the system and what you can get from it.
Nice to hear, a little serendipity built in. Michael, any final comments from you?
Well, yeah, look, we, as I say, we started with you in 2015, and absolutely no regrets. And anybody who is seriously thinking about digitizing their operations will find a great partner with Nulogy. And I can't sing its praises enough. It has helped us massively, and I would hope that it would help some of your potential new customers. So yeah, if you're interested, you need to get in touch.
Well, thank you. We always like to hear things like that from our customers. Wonderful closing thoughts there. So I think we're all done for questions, it looks like. So I'd like to thank all of our panelists today, Gavin, Michael, Scott, for the wonderful presentation, for everybody's insights. Thank you to Packaging Innovations for hosting this event today. And if you have any questions for us at Nulogy, feel free to reach out via our website, info@nulogy.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn or with Scott or with both of us. Always happy to have conversations with the community. So we hope to continue the dialogue. Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you all have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.